Well, good evening, good evening, good evening. I want to welcome you to tonight's Bible study. I am glad to be here and I'm glad that you are here with me. This is another night of Bible study with Regina L. Stillman, otherwise known as the spiritual thought leader. And I appreciate you all for coming in. One reason the Bishop of Twitch was here bright and early this evening. Came right on in, sharing peace and love. And I love you, my brother. Welcome to the Bible study. To others of you that may be auditing and not talking in my chat, I want to welcome you as well. And to those that will look at this after and watch it on demand, I want to appreciate you. There is my friend Jay Trey, all the way from California. I love you, sis. It's good to see you in the room, fam. Nothing but mad love to you. Come on in here. Now, tonight, we're going to jump right in as we always do, and let's have some conversation. We, on yesterday, went back, and I'm going to share my screen. I don't think you can love me anymore. I just don't think you can love me any more than I love you, J. Trey. We're going to go back, and I'm going to share my screen. And I'm not going to go over this, but I do want to address what we missed on yesterday, because you remember on yesterday we had an in-depth conversation about a question and some scriptures that in our reading from the day before yesterday, Stay Lifted had put in and asked to have discussion on clarification, and we did that on yesterday in depth. So today I'm going to go ahead and stay up with where we are, but I want to address what happened on yesterday's reading. And that's assuming that you all have not fallen behind in your reading. We see that Aaron's rod budded. I'm not going to give a whole lot of dialogue on that, but when he was challenged, and God manifested even that he was the chosen, his lineage and genealogy of ancestors and children were selected as the Levites when they put the rods out for the 12 tribes. It was Aaron's rod that budded to identify this was the priesthood and the Levites that God had chosen. Then we have the Levite responsibilities that were addressed, the red heifer ordinance, instructions about the dead, years of wandering. And you note here, we always say 40 years. We consider that to be a generalized. Here we have approximately 38 years from December 1461 to April 1423 BC, found in Deuteronomy 2:14. The birth of Salmon, we start looking at the generations, the husband of Rahab. Now, y'all remember Rahab was the harlot. And the thing I love about God is that there's always an anomaly. So many times we want to get so locked into it's got to be this way, it's got to be that way. I love the fact that he picked an outsider in Rahab. You all remember Rahab, the harlot, was the one that let the spies come in and stay with her and hid them to keep them from being killed. And she was spared after the city was destroyed and they took it over. I love how God always, and she gets up being named in the lineage of Christ. I love it. I love it. An outsider and a harlot too. Some of the folks just couldn't have taken it. But this is how God works outside the box, and I love that. Then we see them going into from Kadesh to the plains of Moab. The death of Miriam at approximately 125 years old. Miriam and Aaron were very critical in the ministry of Moses. They were his sustainers and his support. And so we see them passing away, complaining of the people, and of course, there's no nothing new about that. The waters from Meribah, the rock of murmuring, and we talked about that a little bit on last night. I'm not going to get back into that. The birth of Moses's grandchildren, we start seeing his lineage come to pass and being birthed. Permission to pass through Edom denied. And then they went to Mount Hor, the death of Aaron at 123 years. And remember how significant he was because Moses addressed the fact that he had a speech impediment and was not able to speak. And so God raised up Aaron as Moses's mouthpiece on many occasions. We see him passing away as well. And there's the changing of the guard. So, even in this time right now that we're living in, we are definitely also in a changing of the guard. The mourning for Aaron, again, he had been their high priest, and there was so much uh, value that he brought to the ministry as a part of Moses's ministry, and very significant in that as well. Then the victory at Hormah, that's where we're going to start today. Numbers 33 and 40, Numbers 21, 1 through 3, southward from Mount Hor around Edom, then up to Moab. Because remember, they were denied the ability to go through Edom on yesterday's reading. Now we're going to see them coming through. Then we're going to come on down to the serpent of brass, and that's what I'm probably going to emphasize on tonight, which is a very common topic. I'm not going to reach and get something of obscurity. I'm going to kind of deal with something that's very familiar, and you probably already have heard and known it. But the other is a lot of the war fare that they were going through, the warfare as they were possessing the land and traveling. Uh, and then we're going to come on down northward through Moab. We're on. Oh, actually, today is the third, isn't it? I done jumped over to the fourth. Okay, so let me get my dates right. Uh, so I talked through the third, but I am going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead. And then we have, I still want to do the serpent. I think that's what I want to focus on. I want to focus on the serpent, which is going to be Numbers 21, I believe. Let me go back. Yes, Numbers 21, verses 5 through 9. All right. So that's where we are. I hope once more and again that you all are keeping up with the reading, because the idea is that we are going from Genesis to Revelations if you have not done that, or if it's been a while since you've done Genesis to Revelation, that you will actually catch up on the reading. So at this point, I want to go to Numbers, the 21st chapter, I believe it is. I'm looking, and I believe that's right. I'm just going to go to Numbers 21, and I know it's at the beginning of the reading. So let's just go there. Um, I all the things that they've gone through. I hope that you all are really taking into consideration, like I said on yesterday, we give the children of Israel during this time of wandering and the time going into the promised land, we give them such a hard time. But again, I want you, as I believe it was Stay Lifted said on yesterday, the reframing of how we look at that. Because 40 years, I want you to have the grace, please, please, please. 40 years is longer than some of you all's age, how many years you've been in this world. And then I encourage those of us that are a little older and a little more seasoned to think back to our first 40 years of life. And my God, today, when I think about it, from the time that I was born until I was 40, if there had been uh, a word that God had given me and all that time had passed and I had not, quote unquote, obtained it in the sense of seeing it materialize, many of us would have fallen away. So many of us would have given up just almost immediately. Most of us can't hardly make it a good week, 2 weeks, a month, or a year even. So I always ask, we preach such harshness about the children of Israel. But at the end of the day, I just want us to give them some grace. Give them some grace, because truly, I feel like they deserve that if we really, really stop and think about how long it was before they were actually able to possess the land. So now we're coming into a season, they're moving into the blessed place, but we still having some issues, still having some problems. And I want to, and I'm modding myself here while I'm going. So if I'm seeming like, okay, I think we got it. I want to talk about the serpent. And the people spake against God and against Moses. Wherefore have ye brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no bread, neither is there any water, and our soul loatheth this light bread. Oh, our soul loatheth or hates this light bread. Now, remember, God had been giving them manna. And this is one of the things I didn't necessarily when we were reading the scripture on yesterday in Deuteronomy. So we're in the place where obviously Miriam has died, Aaron has died, but we're still in flux, and Moses is going to die also. But here we are, and Moses is tired. I talked about that yesterday. Let's not be too harsh where we judge him, especially at this point. Not only have the people multiplied in a phenomenal way, we just got masses and hordes of people. That's why he broke them down into groups and then had them by the 12 tribes. You remember I said on yesterday it would be like Moses was the Supreme Court, and then we had the federal court, the state court, the local. He broke them down into groups like that so it could be manageable for him. And the one thing I want us to remember as well, remember that he's aging, folks. He's aging. Now, his strength may have been, like a young man's and all of that, but at the end of the day, we are talking about the numbers increasing and my age is increasing also. I often like to tell people, let's give Moses a break here as well. And how many times have the people risen up against him? For real, if you stop and think about the journey that they had in the wilderness, he carried down tablets down a mountain of course he's tired. Come on, J Trey. Of course he's tired. Twice. He did it twice because he destroyed one set and then had to go back and get another because the people had turned to wickedness before he could come down off the mountain. So I think about the tenacity of Moses and how God had to have sustained him throughout all of this time. But he's coming to the end of his life. And then let's also deal with this as well. We're looking at a season and a time when his siblings, who have been his supporters, strong supporters, are passing away also. And I had a conversation with someone, and we were talking about grief. And we happen to be in leadership. And this is an element I want us to think about too, because remember, one of the things they talk about the mourning of Aaron in Numbers 20, verse 29. When we think of leaders, a lot of times we don't stop to pause and think that leaders have feelings and emotions too. I know a lot of times we try to operate and maneuver in a way that we show strength. We operate in a way, now obviously you don't want I'm not going to say you don't want, because I mean, at the end of the day, I want us to be who we are and show our true selves. But most people don't want the preacher up there, falling out, about to faint, weeping, wailing, and hollering while they're trying to conduct someone's funeral and eulogize them and so on and so forth. So there's a certain decorum that preachers will carry about themselves during the time of loved ones, and especially close loved ones' deaths. But I always want to stop. Anytime we talk about grief, I always want to stop and encourage the followers and the people and just in general, because leaders are, even though they're chosen by God, and I'm not just talking about in the church, I'm talking about overall. The different ones, we've now come up with the understanding, check on your strong friends. The understanding has come to light that those that are constantly in the forefront and carrying a heavy burden, they still have personal emotions. And so I had the blessing to be able to talk with another person in leadership and be able to have that conversation about what it looks like to be able to grieve and to not have to appear before people a certain way just to make the people happy. Now, and I'll say this, my time predominantly that I chose to step away was because I needed time to grieve. I cannot tell you how many losses I've had back to back. And this isn't to have a conversation about myself, but what I'm trying to get us to understand is that we have to stop and acknowledge where we are. And we cannot, and as many times as I say this to people, listen, you're going to grieve now, you're going to grieve later, but you're going to grieve. But I think a lot of times when we're operating in certain spaces and certain capacities, we do not give um, the person an opportunity or even acknowledge they need to grieve. And so my time away really was even a matter of saying, man, they were coming so hard and so fast and so back to back to back to back, uh, that at the end of the day, and especially with my mother being one of my greatest supporters, and I was her caretaker primarily at the end of her life care. And so there is that reality that you just need to stop because something shifts. It really, really does. And I want to bring this in tonight. I'm not going to talk on it a long time. I feel compelled at some point in time that I'm going to actually, we had Crazy Berry Town and Kim Possible 7-Eleven that were coming on and doing a good grief segment with us before I took the leave of absence. But I feel like there's going to be a reinstatement of some level of helping people to cope with grief because grief is it's a real process. It's a real process that cannot be understated. It cannot be underrated. It will stop us in our tracks if we don't deal with it. And listen, we need to apply healthy methodology to the ways that we grieve, and we need to support one another in our grieving. So I want to address again, if we're looking at the fact that Miriam died and then Aaron died, Moses is in a different place, and maybe you haven't stopped to think about that, or maybe you weren't aware that those deaths had occurred. So it kind of makes things a little bit different where he's moving and operating in this hour. So now we still have him at this particular point as far as no, they've already passed away. I'm going to go to, because I'm a day ahead. I'm actually a day ahead, but I still want to get to the serpent of brass. I just want us to think about pressure. I want us to come on, Dr. Dady. It's a whole word. We all process grief and loss differently, and we need to respect the flow. Come through, Dr. Dady. And we have to respect it with one another. And again, my point that I really want to push, I want us to be aware and cognizant that even though a person may be presenting in a certain way, we still have to step back and understand or give them space to be human, if I can word it that way. Give them space to be human in their grief. And strong people want to break too. Can I say that? People are, oh, he's so strong. Oh, she's so strong. She said they need a break too. And as a matter of fact, even if they don't tell you they need a break, how about you show some kindness and show some tenderness and give them a break without asking? Because this is what I'll say a lot of times. Strong people, we don't get asked, do we want a break? It's just assumed you don't need one. And so listen, you can't be strong all the time. One reason you can't be strong all the time. And this is even in a matter of when people are upset with you because you don't show up for them in a way that they've always expected you to show up. And I'm going to say this to the strong people. One reason I'm going to tell you, uh, 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 I'm struggling trying to be strong for myself. And it's like when I don't come for your needs the way you quote unquote feel like I need to show up. It's like, did you ever stop to think that maybe it's your turn to show up for me? did you ever stop? But you're mad because I didn't show up for you the way that I normally show up for you. Well, maybe there's a reason why I'm not showing up for you the way that I normally do. And maybe that's a good indicator that maybe we need to switch shoes for a minute and you need to show up for me. So these are areas that we're learning. These are areas that we're, come on, Dr. Dady. I'm going to see what you said. When I began therapy, The therapist told me that I could hold master classes in compartmentalizing. I always felt the need to look strong and it was falling apart on the inside. Listen, I can totally 100% identify. And ultimately, not only through reaching out for therapy and help, absolutely. But the first thing I had to admit that, hey, something's going on with me. Something's going on with me where I need to step away because my behaviors were, and I'm not talking about anything, ugly or whatever. But well, let me say, I'm not even going to say that it wasn't, because ultimately I started seeing myself see and act and operate in ways that weren't even me. But I was wounded and I was tired and I was devastated and I was grief ridden, riddled, all wrapped up into one. And it's like, hey, can I get a breath? Can I get a breath? And can someone please acknowledge that I need a breath? Instead of that constant pull and that constant drain. And yes, you hit a good word there, Dr. Dady, the compartmentalizing. We can stick it somewhere and stuff it there and figure out how to put it in that little locked room, that little closet, lock the door and keep on operating as if it's not there. And then, hopefully and oftentimes we come back and get it later on. But it's all built up in there. It's you got this compartment, that compartment, the other compartment, and we just keep on, and have that look of strength when inside, I love the way you worded that, it's falling apart. So I want to help to sensitize, if I can use that word, sensitize people's minds and hearts to think about those people that always are relied upon to be strong, to be the support, to be the pillar, to be or not to be. That is the question. And sometimes we just have to say not to be. And it's okay not to be. It's okay not to be. So we look at here, and this is what I'm really trying to kind of build in this kind of idea to understand everything that Moses was dealing with, because so many times we make even our Bible characters one dimensional. Like this is all that is. Moses was a human being, and I think that we have to, when we read scriptures, I think that we have to, when we study these different individuals and their personalities, we need to humanize them, because to not do so almost makes it fictional. Can I put it like that? It becomes almost fictional. And I love the fact, where would that have been? Numbers 20 and 29, where they actually stopped and had time to mourn Aaron's passing. Uh, and who would have felt it more? And Miriam, just right before that, not long before, a year or two earlier, who would have felt that more than Moses? And so I stop and pause on that point because I just want to bring it out that this was a human being that lost his brother and his sister. Don't lose that in the mix. All right. All right. Now, then we get out here and the people are murmuring against him. As if you don't have to deal with this, that, and the other. The people out here murmuring against him and against God. Wherefore have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no bread, there is no water, and our soul now loatheth this light bread, which identifies they're getting bread, because y'all know they were getting manna every day. Now, if you remember, and again, I didn't touch on this yesterday. Let me go back and pick that thought up. I started to mention it earlier. When they got into the promised land, they no longer continued to get manna from heaven. Remember, God said to them, when you go into the land, you're going to buy what you need. So when you come into the land, it's not going to be me raining down manna out of heaven. You're going to have to pay for what you get. Now, this is a transition at that once they've completed their journey in the wilderness and are going into to possess the land, then their requirements of how their provisions, God is still providing for them, but the provisions come differently, where it was coming strictly from God straight out of heaven. After that, they had to pay for it. When you go in amongst the strangers, when you go in amongst the people, and you want this, that, and the other, you will pay for it. That's what we read in Deuteronomy on yesterday. Here, this is before they've actually gone over. We're still in that transitional phase where leadership is dying. It's the changing of the guard. Now, so we see God still raining manna, but we're tired. We loathe, we hate this light bread, but your belly is full. How many times do we not really pay attention to the provision that God is giving us because we want something else? Not that he's not taking care of your needs, but I want something else. And the only thing that I want us to consider when we have that kind of energy and that kind of attitude, when he gives you something else, it's almost like kids at Christmas time. When they first open that present, oh my God, and everything is about this gift. Everything is about this gift. Everything is about this gift. Give it a couple of hours, give it a couple of days, give it a couple of weeks. They could care less about it, and they want something else. Moaning from the blessings that God has provided, KB Browns. But your belly is full. We're tired. Our soul. And you know, I want to, if I can put it this way, I almost say, but it's a slap in God's face. God is providing heavenly manna, something that's never been seen before. God is providing it for you every morning. And instead of having angel food cake, if I can call it that, y'all mad and we tired of this light bread. Really? Raining bread out of the sky must have been something to behold, Crystal Method, but we tired of this. Now, this is what we've had. All these years we've been out here wandering in the wilderness, and at the end of the day, I got an attitude because we loathe this light bread. So I want, as we read, I want us to always reflect back and say, do I see any of my attitudes here? And do I see any of my ideology coming to the surface? Am I content with the things that God has provided, or am I constantly in a mode that I want more? I want something different. I want something better. I'm tired of this. I want to. Let's look at the provision that God is making for us, and can we be happy with that? So we go on. There we are in verse 5. Verse 6, and the Lord sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, and much people of Israel died. Now, so when you get discontented, when you get dissatisfied with the provisions that the Lord has made, and you get an attitude, rest assured there's some serpents that are going to show up and start biting you. They go, because there's just something about ingratitude. Ingratitude, when you are ungrateful and unthankful. And I quoted this the other week, and I don't know where we were, but there was a lady at our church. Every time we got ready to partake, especially in food, she would make the comment, she would say the same: we make no excuse for the things that we have here, for the things that we have here. The Lord hath provided, and we are grateful. We are thankful. So this is where, to me, when we look at this analogy of what's going on, are you grateful for what you've got, and are you grateful for where you're at? Because it's taken every experience that you've gone through to get you here. Are you cursing it? Are you angry about it? Are you saying, but I wanted it this way and I want it that way? We're tired of this light bread. We want X, Y, and Z. But have you shown gratitude for what it is that you do have? Because when you listen to the words that they're saying, the words, thank God that God is so gracious with us, but the words are just loaded with ingratitude. And as Crystal Method said, can you imagine seeing bread come down from heaven? What that must what that looked like, what that experience was like. Oh my God, you're talking about a miracle every morning. Not just that my eyes opened up, not just that I had breath in my body, but God literally out here in the wilderness in a solitary way as we wander around. He provides bread for us straight out of heaven, not touched by the hands of man, but coming from God. And because of the love in his heart that he has for us, every day he gets up and makes provision to make sure that our soul, our spirit, our bodies are completely satisfied and we have everything that we need. And this is where, again, this whole idea, we make no excuse for the things that we have here. For the things that we have here, the Lord has provided, and we are thankful. I thank God for those old mothers of the church that, and I'm 60 some odd years old, but I still remember that old mother. Every time we got ready to eat something, even after we had blessed the food, she would definitely stand up and boldly say, we make no excuse. I'm grateful for that because I still have that resonating in my mind and my heart. Just stop and be thankful for what we have here. The Lord has provided. Come on. Do we recognize how God has truly made provisions for us time after time after time? So the Lord sent those fiery serpents and they bit the people and much of the people died. Now, therefore, the people came to Moses and said, we have sinned, for we have spoken against the Lord. You think? You think? The Lord just keeps on showing out and showing up for you time and time again, and you just keep judging God falsely. You brought us out here. How many times have we heard them in these past scriptures literally come out and say, God, you brought us out here to kill us? But again, as I said, I want us to, if you see any area of reflection of yourself, do you think that the things that God has asked and or required or designed for you, do you think it's actually something meant to destroy you? Or do you recognize that God has a plan for your life? And if you would just, the steps of the righteous are ordered of the Lord. If we could just embrace the idea, God has something in this that ultimately all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose. All things are working for my good. I don't care what it is. All things are working for my good. If we could actually believe that, we would not have the attitude of either murmuring and complaining and being disgruntled, nor would we have the fear and the anxiety. Oh, I'm going to get out here and this is going to take me out. This is going to destroy me. This is just going to wipe me all the way out. That energy is the same energy that the children of Israel had. And that's why I say have mercy on them, because sometimes we're doing the same thing. We're just not there. Nobody's writing a story about us in a book. Okay. Nobody sees maybe the thoughts that you have when you're to yourself, when you're in your quiet place, and when discouragement and disgruntlement and dissatisfaction and negativity and fear and doubt and unbelief is trying to creep in. Nobody's writing that in a book and saying this is what so-and-so felt. But yet and still, these are the same feelings. These are the same thoughts. These are the same emotions that the children of Israel were having. And so as we see this, hey, what do I need to do? Just come back to God and say, okay, I love the scripture that says, Lord, I believe, help thou mine unbelief. Because many of us have areas where we are strong in faith, and then we got other areas where our knees are knocking. Am I talking to anybody? I can be strong in the faith in this area, but then when you bring me over into this area, my knees start knocking. So there's nothing wrong with acknowledging I have fear. And Lord, I believe, help down my unbelief. And the only way we're going to get that unbelief taken care of, we're going to have to acknowledge it transparently and truthfully. So then they said, pray, please, please, pray to the Lord. Please, listen, help my unbelief. There's nothing wrong with that. That he take away the serpent from us. And Moses prayed for the people. And the Lord said unto Moses, make thee a fiery serpent and set it upon a pole, and it shall come to pass. Listen, one of my favorite phrases, if not my favorite. And it shall come to pass, other than, and it came to pass, that everyone that is bitten, when he looketh upon it, shall live. Everyone that is bitten, when he looketh upon it, shall live. And Moses made a serpent of brass and put it on a pole. And it came to pass that if a serpent had bitten any man, when he beheld the serpent of brass, he lived. And from that, the children of Israel set forward and pitched in Oboth. Now, before you can go forward, you got to deal with that fear and unbelief. But I need you to, again, stop and make the assessment. We got to tell Jesus all of our trials. We got to tell him all of our shortcomings, because he's the only one that can help us. Jesus can help me, and Jesus alone. That's where our help lies. I will look to the hills from where my help comes from. Whence cometh my help? All my help comes from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. Know that God is watching. We used to sing that Negro spiritual back in the day, all night, all day. Angels watching over me, my Lord. For the angel of the Lord encamps round about them that love him. Come on here. So as we look at the reality, God always has you in mind, and he always has your best interest at heart. But we also have to stop and say, am I judging God falsely? Am I not letting God be the great God and the great King that he is? Have I limited and restricted him to some level of being unable to deliver me out of this situation? Has he not provided for me the whole time? Has he not taken care of me time and time again? Or better yet, is there some area in my heart that has become disgruntled? Is there come on now, I had to, come on. Sometimes when you start stuff you got in those compartments, Dr. Dady, stuff that you have compartmentalized, sometimes you got to dig those skeletons out. And lo and behold, you'll find a little anger in there because it didn't happen the way that you wanted to happen. Sometimes you'll find a little disgust and a little bit of, I'm feeling some kind of way. Come on, Dr. Dady. And we have to be honest with ourselves before God. Because God knows when we got a little bit of attitude. God knows when we've really taken offense, when we're trying to act like I'm not offended, but it's down in there. It's down in there. And there's something in me that's like, listen, and then God forbid, as I used to say, a little bit of gravy goes out, a little bit of her gravy, a little bit of his gravy goes all over my plate. It don't take a lot. Because listen, I've already had enough. I've had enough of you. And we have to actually stop and start identifying. And can I say this? Yes, even attitudes with God. Some of y'all, we can't move past and go on. The children set forward and pitched in Oboth. Some of us can't get to Oboth because we won't deal with the anger that we have back here. Yes, with God. Sometimes even in our grief, can we not acknowledge sometimes grief can cause you to have anger towards God? And grief, not just in someone's death and dying, but grief, any kind of loss. I lost this job. I lost this house. I lost this opportunity. I lost and was not given this promotion. I lost something that you feel like you were deserving of, but it didn't come to you. Something that you loved and it was removed from your presence. We have to be very, very honest with ourselves and say there are times in loss that, yes, we get angry with God. And stop playing games. Stop playing games. Stop playing. Lord, I know this was your will, so thy will be done. No, but yes, that is true. But if your heart is wounded and your heart is hurt and your heart is bleeding and you feel anger down in there, you need to deal with that. Am I talking to anybody? So I'm looking, I'm gonna come down and I'm gonna read some of your comments here because I see my chat is moving. Let's see where. Come back, come back. Yes, Lord, help my unbelief. We must tell Jesus all of our trials. Come on here, Crystal Method. KB Browns, come on with the word. Jesus said to him, if you can believe, all things are possible to him who believes. Immediately the father of the child cried and said with tears, Lord, I believe. Help thou my unbelief. Come on with that. Come on with that, KB Browns. Truck driver, come on. We talking real talk in here. Reminded me of, God quickly reminded me of who he is. I love that, Dr. Dady. Because listen, at the end of the day, that's the focal point. That really becomes the challenge because it says I'm focused on something other than the greatness of God. When God told me to move, I was angry because I hadn't seen some of my prayers come to pass. Come on, Dr. Dady, make it plain. Listen, I could go back and share some things even about ministry and dreams and visions and things that didn't come to pass and ways things went down. And Dr. Dady, I was mad. I ain't even gonna say I was angry. I was mad because they say sophisticated folk get angry, dogs get mad. I was mad dog 2020. I was a mad dog. And even in the things of God. Come on now. You can still have that place when you have, come on. It was past anger. I was, honey, we were wrath. I was an angry, rabid mad dog. And we have to stop and say, hold up, swole up, hold up. Don't play with yourself and don't play with God. There's some stuff in here that, yes, Mad Dog 2020. That's what I said. That's what I meant. I had moved on over. Listen, and I had to deal with my own ugly self. You understand what I'm saying? Oh, but it was for the work of the Lord. It was for this. I had to work through my own ugly self. You hear me? I had to look at that in the mirror and identify it for as ugly as it was, because at the end of the day, be angry and sin not. Well, I didn't say what I wanted to say. I didn't do what I wanted to do. But what was in my heart? Come on, y'all. What was in my heart? Doesn't matter if I didn't say it. Doesn't matter if I didn't do it. It had set up residence in my heart. Am I talking to anybody? Woo! Come on, this is real talk. When my granddad and aunt passed, I was temporarily angry with God. That's not uncommon. God quickly reminded. Come on, y'all. Talk to me. Talk to me. Come on. This is real talk. And we've got to be honest. We've got to be truthful. We've got to deal, because listen, it will show up at the most inopportune time. Please believe me. It will show up when you least want it to be shown. Can I tell you? If you won't deal with it in private, those are some areas where sometimes God will listen, because that serpent is loose. That serpent had bitten me. That serpent had bitten me. Am I talking to anybody? That serpent had bitten me out there in the wilderness. Am I talking to anybody? And it was killing me. I'm talking real talk in here tonight. So it's a beautiful thing. And I'm going to go back to this passage, because when Moses made the serpent of brass, verse 9, and he put it on a pole, and it came to pass that if a serpent had bitten any man, when he beheld the serpent of brass, he lived. Now, this was the thing. I'm going to go back to verse 8 as well. And the Lord said to Moses, make thee a fiery serpent and set it upon a pole, and it shall come to pass that everyone that is bitten, when he looketh upon it, shall live. We act like God doesn't already know how we're feeling. Come on, KB Browns. And this, can I say this? I believe, KB Browns, that this is part of the development of relationship as well as fellowship. And I'm going to say this again. I said it on yesterday. I'm going to repeat it again today because it came out, just came up and came out when we were talking on yesterday. Relationship. If I have children, my children are always going to be related to me. However, just because my children are related to me does not mean that we are in fellowship. You can have children that are related to you that are not in fellowship with you. So we're not just trying to have relationship, we're also wanting to have fellowship. Friendship with Jesus, fellowship divine. So this is where we come to a point where in my pain, I go to God. In my grief, I go to God. What a friend we have in Jesus, all our sins and griefs to bear. Come on, we can carry everything to God in prayer. Cast all your care upon him because he cares for you. And when you have someone that cares about you, you can come and just, here it is. This is bam, and just open it up. Open it up. And this relationship will allow you to begin to move into fellowship because now we're having dialogue. Come on. We're God and we're having not just a relationship, but we're having fellowship in the bad things, especially in the bad things, in the hard things, especially in the hard things, in the ugly things, especially in the ugly things. That's what develops a different level of intimacy. When you can show all of your ugly, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and still know that there is intense love there that will never fail and that will never leave, that will never change, that yet and still will grow deeper and deeper in spite of. Baby, that's when you start moving into some real intimacy. When you still, and I'm going to say this because I want to use this for a litmus test. I want you to be honest with yourself. You don't have to tell spiritual thought leader nothing. I want you to be honest with yourself. Do you still feel that there are areas about yourself that you still need to hide from God? If that's where you are, then you're still skating on the surface of intimacy. Can I say that one more time and ask this question to yourself? You don't owe me any answer whatsoever. This is HIPAA. This is HIPAA stuff right here. This is some personal information you don't have to share with nobody but you and the doctor, and God is the doctor. Do you still have areas that you're trying to hide from God because you feel like God won't love you the same way anymore? God won't whatever. God won't bless you. God won't this. God won't that. Do you still have areas that are hidden off from God? You're cutting yourself short on opportunities for intimacy. Because those are the places that it can get really deep. Am I talking to anybody? Those are the places that can go way, way, way down and take you into a whole nother level and realm of relationship with God. Trust that he loves you unconditionally. There are no limitations to the love. There are no, you got to do this and you got to do that, or I'm going to, that is not the God that we serve. You can come and lay everything before God, every part of your being, the embarrassing parts. Come on. The unrevealed. Is anybody, are y'all hearing me? Come on, Dr. Dady. That is a weighted question. I can admit that I have learned to be vulnerable with God and to go to him as is. I love that. I love that, Dr. Dady. I love that. I love that. Come on. I want to read that again. Sometimes we want to, like Adam, hiding in the bushes. Come on, Crystal Method. That's the truth. That's the truth. But I want to reread what Dr. Dady just said. I can admit that I have learned to be vulnerable with God and to go to him as is. That right there, people. Oh, my. And that's how we're going to close out tonight. And that's how we're going to close. Because this is the element. This is the fiery serpent being set up on the pole. Look up and live. Look up and live. You don't listen. You don't have to, because you've been bitten by the serpent, you don't have to die out here in the wilderness. God has given you an opportunity. God has given you a way out. But how is that way out? To learn to be vulnerable with God and to go to Him as is. Woo, that's a word right there, Dr. Dady. And that's how we're going to close tonight. That is the serpent. That's the fiery serpent on the pole that will, regardless to the fact that you've been bitten, it will give you the deliverance from that situation that you need. It will. If you just, as Dr. Dady said, I'm going to say it one more time, learn to be vulnerable with God and go to God as is. Come on, y'all. Thank you, Lord, that we can come to you as is. Oh yeah, that's good. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. That's when we move into a whole different level, a whole different dimension. When we know whatever and however I am, I can bring it to God as is. Thank you all. And that's what I'm going to stop with on tonight, because I feel like that's the word from the Lord right there. And Dr. Dady just, she captured it in a nutshell. One reason the Bishop of Twitch is in the room. I appreciate you, sir. Always glad to have you in the midst. J Trey 707, that's my fam in the room in Cali. Love you, sis. And thank you. You just can't love me anymore. I just don't think it's possible. Truck driver Mamu Fasa is in the house. I love you. I love you. I love you. Come on in here. C Love 702, good to have you in the Lion's Den for Bible study tonight. Thank you so much. The High Priestess is here, Dr. Dady Priest, and she's giving us good stuff. She doesn't listen. She's not stingy. She just puts it out and gives it out wherever she can share it. And I appreciate you for that, High Priestess. I love me some you. Come on in here. I'm coming on down and looking, and I'm booking, and KB Brown's my brother. Thank you for the scripture. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for the word. I love me some you. Crystal Method, that's my sister. I appreciate you and all of your input that you bring to the Lion's Den. I love you. I absolutely positively do. I saw my brother DJ Rockin' Ron in the house, and nothing but mad love to him. Listen, I tell you, he never ceases to find another opportunity to come in and love on his sister. And I just appreciate you. Drive safely. I appreciate you. And I want you to arrive safely. I love you so much, sir. And thank you for just thinking enough to stop by. Listen, I love all of you guys. It's been a great night. Take that last thought. Know that you can go to God and become as vulnerable as you can become with God, because He is the lover of your soul. Nobody's going to love you like God loves you. I don't care. I don't care who it is. We talk about love and how much we love each other, but can't nobody love you like God loves you. Become completely vulnerable to God and go to Him as is. In other words, look up and live. I appreciate you. Have a great night. Peace for your journey.